Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Welcome to another edition of If You Like This, Try This. And this one is going to be a mix of, I have 5 different like books that have kind of like a theme or a trope or an oddly specific detail that I then have either one or more in some cases, but for a couple of these I have sadly just one rec to give you because they're so oddly specific, or I myself just have not read enough like it that I recommend maybe, or just haven't heard of enough to recommend a full video for. And I have taken all of these though from my video rec form, which is always linked down below. And for quite a few of these, I have had put in sometimes since the very beginning of my video rec form even. And I've just been waiting and hoping that I would have enough to do my own video on them, and I haven't. And instead I was like, I would really like to kind of mash these together into their own video. So I'm going to do that in this one. So the kind of 5 tropes I'm going to do, or oddly specific things that I'm going to do. And some of these though, I will tell you, I kind of have my own video for them as well, but they got put back into the video rec form. So I maybe, because I have new viewers all the time, right? I want to give you at least 1 or 2 of these recs and then point you to that video so that you can maybe go and see that video. And if I don't have any new recs for you guys, I'll just, tell you that and then point everyone to that video where I'll hopefully have had 8 to 10 recs for that. But anyway, that's kind of my explanation for this video. It's going to be if you like this, try this, as well as a few of these I'll be able to push you to a whole video I did about it, but also just to, acknowledge some of these that were video requests where I'm not able to make a full video for them. Okay. So the 5 oddly specific ones here are ones where they are prisoners together. Ones where they, so in that case, they're ones where they're actually sentenced to prison together, okay? Whether rightly or wrongly, they're sentenced to a prison together, and I'm sure you can guess which book it's suggested it's like, but we'll get to that part. One that is like a Viking romance. One that is where they are kidnapped together, okay? And that, of course, is different than where they're prisoners together, but it still is one that's within the realm of they're almost having to survive the situation together, but they were taken and being held captive together. Romances that are from the hero's POV only, and or I made a little caveat to this, and I'll show you what I mean when we get to it. It's from a single hero's POV, and maybe you see where I'm going to go with that in a second. And then the final one we're going to do today is people are asking for male escorts, like a specific one that, again, I'm sure you know which one they're asking for romances like. So, again, a few of these oddly specific ones I have whole videos on, and I'll tell you about them as we get to it. But those are going to be the 5 sections. If I was talented enough today, I'll actually have timestamps down below. Otherwise, you can just slide through until you see that pop up. But without further ado, let's actually get into it today. So first off is, as I said, prisoners together. And the request in the video form, which I didn't write down every name for this one since there was a lot, but they asked for, of course, books like Hold. And the person, they were asking for, I kind of expressed how they wish that Claire had done even more with Raina and Cain. And I completely understand why you feel that way. Obviously, this is one of the very first books I also read under the Claire Kent pen name. It's what drew a lot of people in. You either came in through Hold, you came in through Last Light, you came in through Escorted, which will, again, also be showing up in this video. And she actually has a Q&A that is going up soon explaining, how this book came about and if or when you'll ever see more of this couple. But she does actually have the original cover with Kane on the front available on her website right now. Anyway, this is no promo for that, but I do work for Claire Kent / Noelle Adams, and this also came in on my channel. This also came in on my viewer requests a video asking for other books like this. Now, a while ago, I did make a video that was prison romances, quite a while back. It's not like my normal cup of tea. This was something extra special to me. And so I have mentioned most of these that I'm about to mention. I have 3 recs for you. 2 of them I talk about already in this video that I'm going to link, but one of them I actually just read, I think last year. So that'll be a new rec, but I'm going to mention these other 2 because they're more specific to the prison planet situation that is in hold. So I'll tell you what this book is about as well, just in case, because maybe for some reason you read the other 2 I'm going to talk about, but you haven't read this one, because that could be possible. Though if you ever look up a prison planet romance, this is literally the #1 that will come up, but maybe you haven't. I would hate to be so, such a fluffer for Claire Kent that I can't believe you would have read one of these other ones and not read hers. But this is about Raina, who has committed a political crime, basically, and she gets thrown into this prison on a prison planet where she's basically going to get torn apart and raped and killed if she doesn't create an alliance with someone bigger and stronger. So she gets told literally by a guard who's the one taking her down into the bowels of the prison, who says, find the strongest man there and give yourself to him in return for protection. It's the only way you'll ever survive. And so she literally eyes up her options, and she sees a man who actually has a cell to himself, because not all of the men have a place of solitude or a place of protection. And so she sees a man and she offers herself to him, and it turns out his name is Kane, and he's actually able to lock them in for safety. He has his own bathroom, quite a luxury, by the way. And yeah, as she learns more about him, she learns she did make quite a good choice by choosing to stay with him. So it's a pretty short novel. Of course, it's only about 160 pages in this physical copy I have, but there's a reason why people ask for books like this one, even all these years later. I believe this one's over 10 years old at this point. Yes. I talked about this in just a recent video as well. But this one is coming up on 20 years old from when it was originally released. So that's absolutely amazing. That is still, pun intended, holds people's attention so much. Now, if you like Hold, you may have, because it is a bit of an older one as well still, Hold even has inspired some books to be written, because there's nothing quite like it. But there's a couple other books that get recommended. Now, they're still quite different, but there are some ones that I've read. Now, I don't remember these ones quite as well, but I myself, again, back before I ever worked for her, I was thirsty for other books that would scratch the same itch. So there's one that some people may have read. There's one called Trapped by Allison Ames. And this one is about Bella, who gets marooned on a primitive prison planet. And so her one chance for survival until rescue arrives is to trade her body for protection. So in this case, in fact, there's an ex-soldier whose name is also Kane. So take that for what you will. And he's been on this planet for 8 years already. And she's going to attach herself with him. So in that case, she herself isn't a prisoner, but she gets trapped on this planet as well. Then there is one called Guardian by Emma Chandler, and this is book 1 in the prison planet. And this one is about Audra Copeland, and she gets dropped on She's among dozens of newly convicted felons dropped onto the prison planet Rodon. And she discovers that the women of Zone 4 have a long-standing arrangement with the men, and they hand over 6 of the new arrivals so the men don't raid all of them. And Audra is one of the ones who gets drafted. So she can take her chances on her own, or she can pick one of the men to be a guardian of hers. And so it's a very simple, again, transactional deal, right? Trade sex in exchange for food and safety, or let one of the other 200 men in the zone get a hold of her. So she sees Tyson on the edge of the crowd, this hulking, scarred figure, and she makes an offer with him. So that is the one in Guardian. So those are the two that, in my opinion, are the most like hold directly, as in like they're both like Prison Planet-esque. But as I said, there's one that I read recently that is a bit different, but also still has some of those elements, but is a bit softer and not quite as directly the same. And like I said, this is if you like this, try this type of situation, okay? And the one that I read not too long ago that I think is interesting, which, though, by the way, I have never read this by this author, but Ruby Dixon does also have one she does have a Prison Planet series. I have not read them. But the one I'm talking about is one called Bound to the Shadow Prince. And I read this, oh wow. Okay, this was 2 years ago. I thought I read it last year. Pardon me, I read it 2 years ago. So this one is actually about Princess Chandra. Sorry if I mispronounce it. And she must live in a tower for 7 years with a Felion, the enemy of her people. And he's a shadow prince. He's a monster, or of what she knows him, he is. And her and this monster must live in this tower for 7 years and never try to leave for kind of this like ritual reason. And if they try to leave, it will like curse their peoples if they try to leave. So in my opinion, again, this is if you like this, try this. Is it exactly the same as like a Prison Planet thing? No, but they are trapped in a tower and not allowed to leave, or there will be dire consequences for their people. And I don't know, I found this one very interesting. I didn't give this one like a perfect rating by any means, but I found it very unique. And it was like a monster. It was a monster romance. And it definitely had some twists that I did not see coming. The third act quite surprised me. And yeah, it was very intriguing how it all played out. So yeah, they were stuck in a windowless tower for 7 years, and they're supposed to be mortal enemies. So yeah, I thought it was just a very interesting take on that idea of like, they're not technically prisoners, but they are. Oh, and one final twist, Candromeda, that is her like full name, she wasn't supposed to be the princess who was trapped in the tower. It was, I believe, her sister who'd been raised to be the one who was going to be in the tower. And it was only kind of like literally last minute that I believe something happens to her sister, and they need a princess to go in this tower or their land will be cursed. So she gets like traded in last minute, and she is chronically ill. And so there's also, she's not the one who gives herself her own medicine. She has a servant who's always done it. So she has to learn how to give herself her own treatments before she goes in. So it's just crazy. And anyway, like I said, if you like this, try this. It's a very different from Hold, but it still has those same things of like, you're trapped, it's in a small space, supposedly an enemy thing, though it doesn't have the same parts of the like transaction for survival. There are parts of their survival that become transactionary. It's just the sex part isn't transactionary. There are other things they end up transacting, and it's enemies to lovers. Because if there's no one else to talk to, what are you going to do? So anyway, just wanted to put that forth as something a bit different than the other ones, but maybe give it a try, right? All right, moving on. The next one, I have someone asking for Viking romance and or someone asking for Barbarian romance or these different vibes, things like Under a Northern Sky. And I have talked many times about how much I love this book. This is a standalone romance, though it was the beginning of a series that just never got completed. But it does stand alone well on its own. I stand by that, so I continue to recommend it, even though I have no idea what happened with this author. I talked about them in a recent video that did really well, which was about authors that I have no idea where they went to. So I continue to bring this book up because I love it. And I know a lot of you guys did because you read it off of my recommendation. And so now you're like, how do I find other books like this? And so that was one of the requests in the video rec form, is books like Under a Northern Sky. And I haven't found many like it. It does have some staples that you can find in places, you know. It is an arranged marriage between enemies. He ends up like taking her prisoner because she gets blamed for the death of someone on the way there, I think. And so she arrives as like a princess in chains almost. I don't know if she's a princess actually, but she arrives as his like bride in chains. But yet they're still going to get married, and they end up actually kind of like teaming up against these people who are trying to make their two like people war against one another. But it is like led kind of as a barbarian romance more than like Viking or something, but the vibes are all there. And I mean, Vikings were also kind of seen as barbarians to the people that they were raiding and things like that. So this to me like involves a raiding, it involves enemy clans, it involves like arranged marriage-esque is kind of what was going on. But I love it. I love it. So the book, though, that I have to recommend as a if you like this, try this, it's not a one-for-one, as any of these are. Like, they're not. And they shouldn't be, right? An author shouldn't be, you know, directly copying one anyway. And I'm not saying this author did that. No, that's the point. They didn't. But when I was reading it, I read this one pretty recently, it was giving me vibes of this, and even kind of the look of the book was giving me vibes of this, and so I talked about that in a recent recap. And this book was Heart of the Wolf by Michelle Love, okay? So this is the cover of that one, and maybe you can see what I'm talking about, like with this, how the covers are there. And they do both take place in the north, and they are enemy factions. This one is a fated mate, however, and this one is more fantasy. This one isn't fantasy, it's more like historical. As far as I could tell, there wasn't any magic involved in this one. It felt more historical. This one does have a shifter, it does have magic, it has witches involved and things like that. But again, I think if you have read Under the Northern Sky, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, the characters themselves, which I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. I don't have that right in front of me right now. But they themselves aren't enemies because they do feel the fated mate bond from the beginning and they don't hold that against one another. But their peoples are enemies, and they first see each other and get a glimpse of one another when there has been some raiding and fighting between their peoples. And then it's many years later when they finally will end up together, and our heroine will end up in the camp of the hero, and she just feels this crazy pull towards him, and he explains to her that they're mates. And she has to make this decision of, again, she doesn't hate him, even though she knows he's of her enemy people, because she can feel this pull to him. And she has to make the decision to fully surrender to that feeling, even when she knows that she's going to be, you know, seen as a traitor. She's giving up the last ties to her home, but something just feels so right about being with him that she can't help it. And then, yeah, it still has that northern, like cold, very isolated feeling. And again, warring clans, raiding, like all of those things. So I think this one maybe feels a bit more like Viking, but there still is like a barbarian vibe around this one. So that's why I'm putting these on the if you like Under the Northern Sky. I'm really recommending that you try Heart of a Wolf by Michelle Love. I think you could be pleased with those. And I haven't read it yet, but there is another one out already. I have downloaded it, I just haven't got to it yet, about a different couple as well. So there is more coming from that. So if you liked this and you're sad that there was only one book that came out, maybe you can hop on to Michelle Love and have more to read. I definitely will be continuing the series when I get the chance. Okay, next up, we have quite a heavy one here. And this one was very difficult to find them. And in fact, there was one other one I thought I had for this, and then I double checked right before, and I was wrong. They weren't done. But this one was the Kidnapped Together. This is one I've actually been trying. This was one of the ones, like I said, has been in the video rec form forever. Like literal near since the beginning that I had this form, a couple years. It's been in there, and it's actually been asked for a couple of times by different people. And I don't have enough recs for it. In fact, I only have one. So that's why it's going on this video. And I'm sorry about that. People asked for Kidnapped Together. And of course, they specifically referenced books like Still Beating. So if you haven't read this one, it is a beautiful, painful, agonizing book about these two. It's this girl, Cora, and actually her sister's fiance, Dean, that get kidnapped by a serial unaliver who ties them in a basement and actually forces horrible things upon them. But that, honestly, is only one part of their journey. I don't want to spoil the whole thing about it, but it's only one part of their journey. And I read this book many years ago now. And I think most people who've read it, this one I think is even my signed copy. Yes, I did get to meet Jennifer Hartman actually at a book signing. And I just think this was done really well. And even though it's not perfect, like, it's done really well. It's really beautiful and very thought-provoking, and just showing that the still beating part of this isn't just about when they're in captivity. It's about other parts as well. So I absolutely understand why people want other books like this. So yes, Still Beating. Yeah. And the only other book like it that I've read is this one called Heartbreak Warfare by Kate Stewart and Heather Orgeron. Sorry, I'm so sorry I mispronounced that. Now, this one is similar in the few of the main points. These two get kidnapped together. The heroine is, in this case, the one who is in a relationship with someone else. She actually has a husband. But this one is a military one. And they get kidnapped by the enemy and tortured. But also it's awful. It's awful and it's traumatic. And in the same way as Still Beating, once they're no longer prisoners, they're the only ones who know what they went through. And so even though, both in the case of Still Beating, where Dean does have a partner, in Heartbreak Warfare, I don't remember her name here, sorry. The heroine has a partner. That partner, no matter how much you loved them, they can't fully relate to you in the same way anymore. And you don't have, like, no one has to be a bad person in that scenario for things to not work out. There's trauma and PTSD, and there literal were trauma bonds formed. Like, we talk about trauma bonding in dark romance in certain ways. There are actual, like, literal trauma bonds in scenarios like that a partner just can't understand the way that the person who went through it with you can. So, yeah, I struggled with Heartbreak Warfare. I will tell you that though both Still Beating and Heartbreak Warfare have, you know, a trigger warning for infidelity, though I think it's definitely in different ways in both of them, like very different ways that it's happening. And it affected me in different ways in both of them. So just want to put that out there though. But for me, the only other book that I've read that is like Still Beating, where they're kidnapped together, the stuff that happens while they're kidnapped, and then out of it, I think it matches them the most closely. Again, they're still not exactly the same. The motivations for why they're kidnapped in Heartbreak Warfare are certainly different. There are literally like military and government reasons in one, whereas in the other, in Still Beating, it's one guy's sick motivations and his purpose and what's happening. And in Heartbreak Warfare, it literally is like national security and things like that. But when it all boils down to it, the effects of it are very personal reasons. So, yeah. So there you go. So again, I definitely did not have enough to make a full on that. And there are, there actually is one more. So just in talking about it, I realized there's actually one more that's like this as well. So sorry that I said there's only one. The other one that I just remembered is actually Possess Me by Michelle Hurd. Also has this trope as well. It's a mafia romance. And this one is about Everly. And I can't remember the hero in this one. Let me pull it up here, because just as we were talking about it, I was like, I haven't read another one just like this. But I have read this one. Everly and Alec. And they are kidnapped and abused together. And he protected her from a lot of it. And then when they are escaping, I think they both think the other one has died. And it is also a secret pregnancy one. So I think maybe that's why I didn't include it. So Heartbreak Warfare would be the most direct copy to Still Beating. And Michelle Hurd, as I like to say, she does get pretty bombastic and over the top with hers. And also, it's one of those where, like, when Alec finds out there's a baby, he is going to, like, somehow blame Everly for it for a short amount of time. And think that she was keeping a secret from him in some way. And that can just kind of feel icky after what we went through. But I gave this one 4.5 stars when I read it, and I really, really loved it. And it had some of the darkest stuff she's done, because I do think this one had some of the same stuff sexually that happens in Still Beating happens in this one, if I remember correctly. And that's why there's a secret baby scenario. If you know what I mean about Still Beating, you'll know what I mean about Possess Me. So if that's the part of Still Beating that you want to see another example of, you can see it in that one. So anyway, okay, time to move along. So I guess I do have 2 examples of that, but on very different tracks. Okay, next up, we have one that I love to share about, and I wish more authors would try out, and it is the hero's POV only in the book. This is one I had someone ask for, and they mention one of my favorite books as the example is Sustained by Emma Chase. And this is a book, I actually believe this whole series does this. This is just the one that's my favorite, and it's also the one that Nate mentioned. But it's this whole trilogy of lawyers. And this series, wow, when was this series from? I think it's in 2013, 2014, 2015. And this, I love this one so much. And this book is actually, this woman is made the, she is the guardian to her 6 orphan nieces and nephews, Chelsea McQuaid. And this book starts off with Jake Becker, who is a attorney, and he almost gets robbed by this little boy. And he discovers that this little boy is one of the nephews to Chelsea. And he very quickly gets sucked into her life. He's no Prince Charming or hero, but he just literally can't help but get sucked into their life. And now from this man who just wants to be a bad boy, cold, calculus, and intimidating, he just absolutely gets broken down by them all and adores them. And yeah, this whole book is from his point of view. Now, the thing is, with this type of story, where the point of it is that it's from his POV, there can be a very vast array of books that I recommend, because the only thing they were asking for was ones where it's just from the hero's POV. And that can really go anywhere. So I have 3 recs for you. And 2 are actually by the same author, because this author actually writes most of their books in that POV, but a lot of the books are very different. So you can go and check out this author, and I think you'll find that the books all run the gamut and you can try them out. Okay. So this author that I'm first mentioning is actually Shea Savage. And again, I do believe, like, as far as I could recall, I could think of 3 off the top of my head that are all hero POV books. One of the most famous ones, and I think is the one that a lot of people will immediately jump to, is Transcendence by Shea Savage. This is just one that's completely out of pocket. It's one of those ones that people have asked for recommendations like Transcendence, and it's really hard to recommend one for you. There's actually one by Claire Kent that's a little bit like it. That's also in the Hold series. But Transcendence is a caveman time travel romance, where a woman just shows up in Ed's life, and he has no idea where she's come from. And the whole story is just from his point of view as he tries to understand this female who's just showed up in his life in these strange clothes, and who he doesn't comprehend. So it is definitely a narrative decision to have the story only from his point of view. Now, if you ever want the story from Beth's point of view, there is a book that she wrote, a short story that's from Beth's point of view. That's called, I think, Luffs or something like that. That is from her point of view of this book. So yeah, this one is all from his point of view. Now, another one, and this is funny, and it actually took me a while to realize that this one was just from the hero's point of view, but it actually is as well. And that is Surviving Rain by Shea Savage, is also only from the hero's point of view. And this is a shipwreck story where the hero in this one, which I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Rain is on his boat and it ends up capsizing, and only her and him make it to this deserted island. And yeah, it's all from his point of view. And then there's another one that I believe is from her as well. Yes, I was right. That is one where this woman who is in a car wreck shows up in the Canadian wilderness, and they're confined to his cabin. And it is one that's a bit of a suspense story that also has to do with a multiple personality disorder situation. And so that's why it's only from the hero's point of view, because he's trying to figure out what's up with this woman who showed up in his area. So those are all Shea Savage stories, but they're all very, very different ones. And then the other one that I want to end with for this hero POV only one is a tiny bit of a cheat because it's a gay romance. So obviously they're both only heroes in it, but it's a single hero's point of view for the whole book. So I'm running with it anyway. And it's one of my favorite books ever. And it is You and Me by Tal Bauer. And this one is only from Luke's point of view the whole way through. So this is a romance between Luke and Landon, who are two single dads. And Luke is really going through it. And Landon ends up kind of being his lifeline and his true love, as it turns out. But it's only from Luke's point of view the whole time. And I kind of love that because not only does it make their romance so soft and sweet, but it makes it really like, does he like me? And by only getting Luke's point of view, you have to kind of read the clues to see if he does or not. So I love that. Okay, now the final one here was male escorts. And this is the one that I also do have a video that is, I don't know if it is only male escorts, but I do have one that is escorts and sex worker romance recs. So I'll put that up there. And I know that I share male and female in that one. But of course, this one, they were asking for books like Escorted with male escort romances. And this is another one that, again, I know it seems like I'm weighting this towards Claire Kent, but these are truly video recs in my video rec form. And again, I understand why. It's because, you know, I talk about this when I made the Claire Kent video a year plus ago now, where I did a deep dive on all of her titles, is that the purpose of the Claire Kent pen name when she created it was a place to kind of dump all these books, not dump as in like a bad thing, but to collect these books of hers where she would get these kind of harebrained ideas for a story and not have them fit under her Noelle Adams. Like they would be a bit darker, or they would be a bit sexier, or they just wouldn't fit her normal. And so she would put them over there. And it makes sense. Like, think about it. She has sci-fi dystopian. She has sci-fi prison planet. She has male sex worker and a virgin author who goes to lose her virginity to this man. Like, it's strange, right? So anyway, I understand why when people read it, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to read more like this. And people not able to find it because there aren't many like that. So anyway, people asked for some male escort romances, and I'm happy to oblige. So yes, that's what Escorted is we have our heroine in this one who goes and she meets Xander, who she hires to take her virginity. And it's Lori who meets with him, and they begin a transactional relationship where they're having sex, she's paying him, and it slowly becomes more than that. And she's also a romance author. A few others that are male escorts. One of my favorites recently, which I am very excited to get to reread. This one is actually an MMF with a male escort called The Escort's Tale. And this is J.D. Pierce, who services usually couples who he helps with desires or kinks that they have. And in this case, he's planning to help with a couple who the man has a spinal cord injury and the sex is driving a wedge in the relationship. And so JD gets hired to assist with that. Then there is Boyfriend by the Hour by LL Ash. And this one is about Sergey, who absolutely loves his job. He's one of the highest paid men for rent in New York City. He lives the high life until he meets a woman who changes that for him. There's Adele, and she is a powerful CEO who has everything money can buy. But money can't buy you a warm body between the sheets or company at night, or can it? After getting his secret number, Adele meets Sergey, who really knows how to get things done. It's a perfect system until feelings get involved. Nothing good can come out of falling for your boyfriend by the hour. Too bad it's already happening. And then there is also a historical to put in here. There is Hugo and the Maiden by S.M. La Violette. And this one is actually about a bit of a like reformed escort slash sex worker when he washes up on this small island with a bit of amnesia about what he used to do. And I think he falls for like a preacher's daughter or something like that. If I remember correctly, it's been a hot minute since I've read this one. But I really enjoyed it, especially because if you do read this series in order, which the whole series is about sex workers, I've talked about this one quite a few times. He's actually quite an ass in the beginning. He's very cocky. He almost feels like, I don't know, he almost feels like one of those sex workers that just gets too full of themselves and you want to punch him in the face sometimes. And he actually, as you learn about the story, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a tease a bit. He actually got beaten and thrown in the river, and then when he ends up washing up on this place, it's his second chance. And once he starts to get his memories back and realizes who he is, he has to decide if he wants to live a new life or if he wants to go back to what he had before. So that is another option for a male escort if you like that. But book 2 in the series, which I've talked about in a recent video as well, which is Hugo and the Maiden is the 3. What's the second one? Oh, I can't remember it. But that one has an ex-sex worker as well who becomes a bodyguard for someone. So that one's good as well. So there you go. Those are the 5 different oddly specific. If you like this, try this. And again, if you have recs for any of these that I've talked about, make sure you share them down below, because these type of videos really become a great place for recs, not only for the people watching, but for me as well. I want to try more of these, but it's just really hard to find these ones. That's why I haven't been able to make full videos for all of them. But the ones I do have full videos before will be tagged up here. Also, I realize that if you are watching on desktop, it will show them in the description as well. If you want links to any of the videos or the books that I've talked about, they will be in the description. Otherwise, please like this video, hype this video. If you're watching it, please send it love in any way you can. It really helps out my channel. And we'll see you next time.